All right, Senators, please take your seats. We're going to get started. Senators, with the absence of the President of the Senate, I call the 15th meeting of the 62nd session to order. Before I take roll call, many of you know that today is National Transgender Day of Remembrance. I am wearing my somewhat representative of the flag tie, as recognition of that, I just wanted to take a little bit of moments of silence and remembrance for that. Okay, thank you. And now we'll move into section 2, roll call. When I say your name, please respond with either here or present. And I sincerely apologize if I mess up your name. Please correct me. Senator Babin. Pause.
Present.
Senator Bradley. Senator Brown.
Present.
Senator Castillo.
Present.
Senator Cowden.
Present.
Senator Cunningham. Senator Day.
Here.
Senator Ezell.
Here.
Senator Flores.
Here.
Senator Glover. Senator James.
Here.
Senator Kata. Senator Kahinde.
Present.
Senator Kendrick.
Here.
Senator Kennedy. Senator Khan.
Here.
Senator Lepetsky.
Present.
Senator Majors.
Present.
Senator Mattson.
Present.
Senator Miller. Senator Kate Miller. Senator Morgan. Senator Mounts.
Present.
Senator Navarro. Senator Nazir.
Present.
Senator Wen.
Here.
Senator Sanchez.
Here.
Senator Tubok.
Here.
Senator Wang.
Here.
Where'd Gabe go? Am I supposed to count myself? Senator Webb here. Senator Wright.
Present.
Senator Zacharias.
Here.
Okay, we meet quorum with 23 total in attendance. Simple majority is 12, and 2/3 present is 16. 2/3 majority of the Senate is 26. Moving into Section 3, approval of the minutes. Are there any amendments to the minutes from the previous meeting? Seeing none, minutes adopted as presented. Moving into Section 4, Public Forum. Public Forum provides a chance for individuals to have the privilege of speaking before the Senate. This is a time for the association to listen to what the community has to say, and to that, we offer our undivided respect and attention. I would like to remind everyone that although we allow the speakers the privilege to use this platform, the opinions of the speakers do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the association or the university. Lastly, in the essence of time, we do limit speeches in public forum to a length of 3 minutes, unless the speaker has spoken to us about it ahead of time. That being said, is there anyone who wishes to speak in public forum tonight? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into Section 5, Officer Reports. Item A, President Katrina Miller.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So first thing, student fees. We still need applicants for honors, fine arts, applied studies, engineering, returning adult, and international. Please, 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 please apply. We started our meetings, our trainings for that. We can still move forward with all the hearings as planned. However, if we don't get any applicants for that, it means those constituencies are not represented on the Student Fees Committee, and we don't want that. So please apply yourselves or encourage others to apply so we can make sure all voices are represented on the Student Fees Committee. I started working on the strategic plan initiatives that SGA will be a part of. I've decided on the Chakra Support Locker in Clinton Hall, since the strategic plan is supposed to be a long-term goal or initiative, and so the Chakra Support Locker hopefully will continue on for a very long time. And then the hope of turning Clinton Hall into a student support services building, that's a process that's just now getting started, and then will take a little while. So those are the two initiatives that I put forward for the SHRAP plan. I am needing a student representative for the University Tenure and Promotion Committee. The dates for that are January 6th through 10th. I don't have a time or anything quite yet, but if you're interested, please let me know. We need to appoint somebody to that committee as soon as possible. Yeah. And then I also have some information about the 2020 Kansas Student Leadership Forum that President Tompkins passed on to me. We have one student who will be going forward with this, but if anybody else is interested, you are more than welcome to attend also. It's just this year's, I'm going to read just a chunk of it. So we are seeking nominations for promising leaders who have displayed outstanding character and ethics in their roles on your campus. This year's theme is students from diverse cultural and religious backgrounds are invited to the state capitol in Topeka on January 11th through 12th, 2020 to attend a week-long forum on faith and values. So if you are interested, I can let you go over this, and then we can pass along your name and we can get you going. You are not required. We don't need somebody. We already have one person, but I just wanted to extend the offer to anybody else who might be interested. And then the Kansas Board of Regents meeting was today in Pittsburgh. So just a few updates from that. Usually every spring we do, as the Student Advisories Committee, we plan Higher Ed Day, but due to how Higher Ed Day has been planned in the past and things like that, Higher Ed Day won't be happening this year. Instead, SAC has decided to allow each university to host their own Higher Ed Day. So, like for example, Fort Hays will probably do their Tiger Day on the Hill or something like that they've done in the past. So then we will be creating our own Higher Ed Day this year, and then as SAC, the Student Advisory Council, we will be attending the State of the State reception, where we'll be able to interact with legislators and start talking about the big ask for higher education funding. For the treasurer, this week we have spent time reviewing the current legislation on student fees. A bill concerning the student fees process has been submitted by the President to the Budget and Finance Committee, and the committee reviewed this today. The committee also reviewed the Student Government Association student fees proposal We also began training for the student fees process with the Student Fees Committee this week. Finally, the Budget and Finance Committee has placed a bill on the floor to change the current state of the statutes on individual and organizational funding. Although the electronic comments on the bill that was sent out by Vice President Berth were typed by me, the treasurer, the reasoning was meant to reflect to the best of my ability the reasonings discussed in the Budget and Finance Committee. It came to my attention that the funding bills that I have been submitting to the Senate floor ought to be in bill form and should not be explained in an Excel sheet, and that they should include the numbers for the funding which has already been allocated. The new formatting of the bills are intended to reflect these changes. Finally, a point of clarification, the numbers that are included in the funding bill are what have been allocated by the Budget and Finance Committee to the student groups. Although these numbers reflect allocation, they do not accurately reflect the amount of money left in the account. After a student group or individual applies for and is approved funding, they are only reimbursed for the receipts that they provide. There are many instances of student groups or individuals that are not given the full amount which they are approved for because they did not spend the money or did not provide receipts for it. These instances give the committee the ability to reallocate the money that was not spent. If the Senate would like to have the figures presented to present the current funds in the account, which I want to stress to the Senate are more than the funds allocated, then I can change the format to reflect those figures. Okay. For the Director of Public Relations, the survey that was sent out is not doing great. Okay. We need at least 300 responses to make the survey a representative sample, and we currently have about 150. So we need to double our response numbers. If you know of anyone who has received the link, please push for them to take the survey. It was a great way for us to receive feedback from the student body, so please keep pushing for that. And that is all I have.
Are there any questions for the president? Gone. Senator Sanchez.
Can you repeat the name of the conference?
Of the Kansas Student Leadership Forum?
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Senator Day.
How many candidates have applied to the cheaper operations position as of now?
So we have one applicant. Vice President Berth was able to interview them. However, I was out due to practicum, so we have rescheduled an interview for Monday. So hopefully we'll be able to move forward with that individual, but just one. So, and I don't know of anybody else who is interested as of right now.
Senator Majors.
Is there any option to send out the survey again, or to just like refresh it in people's emails so they can see it again, or is it sent through a different method?
Yes, there is, and we have twice.
Any other questions? Senator Wang.
The survey is in email form. Is there a way that we can put it on social media or only the email?
I'm getting no's from over here, so.
In order for it to be a representative sample, sample of our campus, it has to go out through Charles Birdsall, who runs Qualtrics for the campus, and so we have to send it through emails so that each demographic gets the appropriate amount of emails.
Any other questions? Senator Sanchez.
Can you remind me of the name of the subject of that email? Because there's a lot of surveys that have been put out recently through the university. So to push something to our constituents, I want to make sure it's the correct one.
The name is. How about I will post the name on the Facebook page? That way you all have it in text format too.
Any other questions for the president? Seeing none, thank you. We'll move into item B, Vice President Michael Berth's report. Obviously, he is not here. I assume that his report will be posted to the record. Thank you. Moving into Section 6, Other Reports. Item A, Academics Chair, Vanessa Cowden.
Okay, so in respect to the long agenda, I'm going to post my report to Soccer Sync, but the main point is next Monday, the 25th, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., we are tabling in the RSC, talking about the plus and minus system and asking questions and concerns over academics. So if anybody wants to help with that and get Senator hours in, or go and put your comments in as well, then that would be great. And I'm open for questions.
Are there any questions for the chair? Senator Nazir?
So this is kind of a question about the plus and minus system. Since the gen ed requirement just went into effect, it'll go into effect next fall. If we do have like a new system that's not the plus and minus system, do you know if that'll override, if that'll change the GPA of students if we get rid of that system, or will it stay the same?
I believe it would stay the same, but don't quote me on that. I will find that out and let you know that.
Any other questions? Senator Wen?
For your event on Monday, are you just having surveys sent out?
We're setting up a table in the RSC. Is that what your question is?
Yeah, I guess it's just more, are you handing out surveys during the tabling, or is it just to just gauge through verbal communication?
It'll be more of verbal, but also they can fill out forms to let us know. And it can talk about more than the plus and minus system. It's just any concerns they have. But that's the main target of it, is to figure out their opinions on that.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move into item B, Safety and Student Services Chair Crystal Zacharias.
My committee is currently working on an initiative, but currently it is under wraps and will not be disclosed. I will submit the rest of what I have done this week to the record.
Are there any questions for the chair? Seeing none, moving into item C, Diversity, Empowerment, and Inclusion Chair Aaron Mounts.
So my week mainly consisted of just prepping for the town hall event that we had today, which went, in my opinion, very well. Seemed very well received and got a decent amount of attention, not only from just people here in SGA, but also students outside of student government, which made me really excited. Other than that, just anything that's more specific of what I worked on, I'll be putting into the record as well. I'm now open for questions.
Are there any questions for the chair? Seeing none, we'll move into item D, Ways and Means Chair Rija Khan.
All right, hello everyone. I'm going to try to keep this, as short as possible. So I hope you all remember at the beginning of this session, we were looking, or the committee was, I forget what committee, but Lucas's committee was looking at cutting down seats. And they wrote a bill that came to DEI, and then from DEI it went to Ways and Means Committee. Now, Ways and Means Committee thought that the bill cutting the number of seats, or reducing the number of seats, wasn't the best idea, since reducing number of seats it's easy to do, and then adding more later on is much more difficult. And we felt, the committee felt that making SGA more competitive is not the goal for SGA. It's basically a platform for students to basically utilize, and we don't know what is going to happen down the line. Therefore, we decided to kill that bill in committee. Now, with that being said, that bill can be resubmitted, and it can be brought to the Senate floor again. Gabe basically told me to let you all know that the people did their job as they said they would, but it's just the bill wasn't deemed to be fit, therefore it died in Ways and Means. Second thing, our social is tomorrow, and for those who have RSVP'd, I will send you an email by the end of tonight giving you details as to where you have to arrive, at what time, and we should be set for that. And now I stand for questions.
Are there any questions for the chair? Senator Sanchez?
Does the social count for senator hours?
That's a very good question. Since we are more on the... actually, I do not know. I cannot answer. No? That's a Michael Berth question, or the Vice President, Michael Berth question.
Any other questions?
Zach.
Senator James?
So since that bill was killed in your committee, are there any plans or anything to basically try to fix the problem, or is it just like, if the bill comes back to the floor, then we'll fix it?
So my committee was only looking at the bill, not at the particular issue. It would be more on the side of the committee that wrote the bill. It would be still their responsibility to look at that. But me reporting this out was basically saying they did what they were supposed to. It's just Ways and Means Committee did not think that was the right fix.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you. Moving into section 7, appointments. Item A, appointing the position of underserved senator. SB-62-081, appointing the position of underserved senator, authored by Katrina Miller.
Lucas, point of information.
You don't have a 2/3 to confirm, so you can still present the bill and go through the process like last time, but then someone will need to motion to table till next meeting.
Thank you. Okay, where was I? Yes. Does the author wish to speak to the bill?
Okay, so aside from what I have written on the bill, Alyssa will be a great addition to this association as she has demonstrated a passion for serving within Student Government Association and advocating for the needs of our student body. That's all I have.
Are there any questions for the author? Okay. Seeing none, does the nominee wish to speak to this bill?
Okay, hi everyone. My name's Alyssa Ziad. I'm a pre-nursing major, and I am also a first-year student. My campus involvement, I'm not really too involved right now. I kind of just wanted to get a feel for campus first. Also, my past experiences, I served in student council in high school for 3 years, 1 year as a representative and 2 years as a class vice president. And through that experience, I was really able to advocate for underserved students, and hopefully I also want to continue that through WSU and just get connected more with underserved populations and make them feel more welcomed, and also make sure that their voices are being heard.
Are there any questions for the nominee? Senator Mounts.
How do you plan to connect with your constituent group?
Well, I participated in Passage to Success from the ODI, so I've kind of been connected with underserved students through that, and I've met a lot of people through that, and also a lot of mentors through that. So hopefully just connecting with them and hearing their opinions as well, I hope to connect with even more underserved students.
Senator Rizzo.
Hi. Do you have any ideas or initiatives you want to bring to SGA?
I currently don't have any. I kind of just want to get a feel for it and hear what other people have to say in order to see if I can take it somewhere further.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, the nominee may stay or leave for debate.
With the motion?
Moving into debate.
I move to table this bill until next week's meeting.
Okay, this does require a second.
Second.
Senator Majors with the second, and is not debatable and requires a majority vote. All those in favor of tabling this bill, please raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, this bill will be tabled until next meeting.
Point of information.
Senator James.
I know that it was tabled, so I'm assuming that debate will be also next week when we bring it back to the table. Is that correct?
Correct. Moving into item B, SB-62-087, appointing the position of Fine Arts Senator, authored by Katrina Miller, Student Body President. Does the author wish to speak to this bill?
So I did not have the opportunity to actually interview with John. Vice President Berth did the interview. So you can read as to why we decided to move forward based off the conversation that Vice President Berth and I had. I was also extremely impressed. If you reviewed his application that we sent out, you would also see that he also included 2 letters of recommendation, and I think that thoroughness is what we need in this association. So.
Are there any questions for the author? Seeing none, thank you. Does the nominee wish to speak to this bill? Yes. Please come up to the podium.
Hi, everyone. Again, my name is John Kirk, and the importance of just in itself of a student organization, a student government, is what we're here for. We're not here for ourselves. We're here for the students that need us. I myself, I'm 26 years old, and I have had the opportunity of being a student pastor for 5-6 years before. I have served on committees in communities in cities in Dallas and Kansas and Oklahoma, and I've had the opportunity to be able to see firsthand what can happen in cities, what can happen in communities when the association and when a government is not doing what it should be doing. Myself, I am a music education major with vocal performance on top of that. I might have the importance in music, but every part of the student organizations and every part of the government is important to me. I want to be able to put my own imprint into this government, and I want to be able to be the voice to the people that don't feel like they have a voice, don't feel like they can speak out. Too many times myself last year, I felt like I didn't have a voice. I didn't feel like I could come up and say anything until I helped start a group here on campus. I am a vice president and co-president of an organization here called Shacapella. We were appointed as a recognized organization this year. And within the time of being appointed as an organization, we have gotten to be able to serve the community, being able to serve WSU itself, and just to see what can be done even in a group is fantastic. And I want to be able to have my imprint to allow groups to be able to be here when they want to.
Are there any questions for the nominee? Senator Nazir.
Hi. Are there any concerns or problems that you would like to bring to SGA that kind of revolve around fine arts students, students that are in the School of Music, that are often pushed aside by the majority?
Right now, one of the biggest problems within the College of Fine Arts is Wilner Auditorium. Wilner Auditorium is the redheaded stepchild of the Fine Arts School. It is completely out of date. It has things that have not been updated since the 60s, and that is completely unacceptable. I know the reasonings, I understand the reasonings, but that doesn't make me okay with it.
Senator James.
You may not have an answer to this, but do you have any ideas or plans to get Warner Auditorium back up to date with the times or anything like that?
So right now I have potential meetings, given that you guys do vote me in. I have potential meetings with Linda Starkey, Amy Baker. Linda Starkey is the director of the performing arts in the College of Fine Arts, and Amy Baker is, Linda Starkey is that. Amy Baker is the director of all things musical here at WSU, and they know, and Danette Baker, they all know Wilner Auditorium inside and out. I have had a few classes there, but they know exactly what is out of date, what is in date, and I plan on sitting down with them and seeing what is exactly out of date and what we can do going further. One of the responsibilities I know that a senator is supposed to be on one of the committees, I want to be on the Budget and Finance Committee so I can see firsthand what exactly we can do, what exactly we have, and where we can move forward going in the future.
Any other questions for the nominee? Seeing none, thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Senator Wen?
Can you speak a little bit to what you see as your strengths and your leadership style and what you think that would bring to student government?
Definitely. Some of the strengths that I have is I don't really need a mic. I make my voice heard. If I have a problem with something, I am not afraid to let someone know about it. If I'm very confident on something and someone has proven to me, or if I've done the research myself, I will support it. But I won't be a stubborn jerk about something. If something has been brought to my attention that is obvious, we can't do it right as of right now, or of anything in that manner, I won't be mean about it. I will just hold it off until we can do it. And on top of that, I just love to learn. I am a learning leader. It's one thing that my student pastor growing up always used to tell us: be a learning leader. If you're not a learning leader, how can you be a better leader?
Senator Wang?
As my understanding, this bill is appointing you as a senator and a two Ways and Means Committee member, and then your goal is to become budget and finance, right?
Yes.
So does that means we need to make changes, Lucas?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? And
Does that require an amendment?
Yes, but you don't, the Senate doesn't get to do that. These are appointments, so the Senate doesn't get to amend appointments. So because Senate President Burth appoints them, you'll have to speak to, John will have to speak to Michael to get it changed.
Point of information.
Sorry,
The Budget and Finance Committee is full
No.
for senators, isn't it?
No, there's still one more seat.
Also, another point of information, we have definitely amended.
Yeah, that was wrong. Yes.
Senator Day?
Point of information, I know for a fact at least 2 or 3 current members of the committee are leaving, so just keep that in mind.
Any other questions for the nominee? Seeing none, thank you very much for your time.
With the motion,
Are we still in questioning period?
Yes.
Oh, we are?
Okay, so, no, you're good, you're good. Moving into the debate period,
with the motion,
Senator James.
motion to table this bill until next week.
That does require a second.
Second.
Senator Mounts with the second. It is not debatable. Please raise your hand if you are in favor of tabling this bill. All opposed? With a majority vote of the Senate, we will be tabling this bill. Moving into item C, SB-62-088, appointing the position of Student Fees Committee member. Authored by Katrina Miller, Student Body President. Does the author wish to speak to this bill?
No.
Are there any questions for the author? Seeing none, does the nominee wish to speak to this bill?
Yes. can I speak where I sit, or do I have to go to the podium?
Please come to the podium.
All right. All right. So I'm Zachary James. I'm an out-of-state person, even though I'm not an out-of-state senator. I'm from out-of-state, and so I applied for the out-of-state position for student fees. Even though I didn't serve on student fees last year, I attended some of the meetings. So just to get an idea of it, and I decided to apply this year to be a member of student fees. Stand open for questions.
Are there any questions for the nominee? Senator Khan?
So are there any, or have you done your research as to where the money gets allocated, and where would you like to see it go once, or if appointed to student fees?
So talking to people from out of state like me, I try to see where they spend a lot of their time on campus and what they utilize on campus, and if what they're utilizing is getting enough funds to like house these resources. And talking to some of them, they spend a lot of time or use a lot of resources in like the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. And I talked to Elisa Sanchez, who's the head over there, just to see if she believes they're getting funded enough. And that's something I plan on bringing up in the committee, just so I can represent my constituency block well.
Any other questions for the nominee? Seeing none, thank you. Moving into the debate period, is there anyone wishing to debate at this time?
With the motion,
Senator Mounts?
I move to table this bill until next meeting.
You want to do it?
Does require a second.
Point of information,
Senator Babin?
we only need a 2/3 vote of those present, not of the whole Senate, for committee members.
I'm going to frack this to Gabe.
Where?
Bylaws, Section 2, 2.4. The language is 2/3 vote of the Senate, whereas for treasurer, student advocate, and senators, the language is 2/3 majority vote of the entire Senate.
He's correct. I rescind my motion.
Moving back into the debating period, is there anyone wishing to debate on this bill? Seeing none, we'll move into the voting period. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? SB-62-088 passes with majority vote of the Senate. Sorry, 2/3 of the present vote of the Senate. Moving past Section 8, unfinished business, into Section 9, new business. Item A, SB-62-079, the McKinney-Vento Scholarship Act. Authored by Mackenzie Haas, Director of Public Relations, sponsored and approved by the Academics Committee. Upon approval, to amend the SGA Code to establish the SGA McKinney-Vento Scholarship to continue to build better a support system for students who are homeless at Wichita State University, and hereby enact the McKinney-Vento Scholarship at $6,000 per year for students who are homeless under the identification standards. Does the author wish to speak to this bill?
So Nancy had approached me with this idea early this summer, And after talking it over with financial aid, we just believe that it's a really great population to give resources to. There aren't very many resources that we currently have to support our students who are homeless on campus. And as you can tell based upon the national numbers, it's a large population. We don't currently have data supporting data to look at based on the population of homeless students on our campus, but that's because we haven't been talking about it for very long. This is kind of one of the first times, or I guess it's the first resource that I've seen to support specifically students who are homeless, and the conversation hasn't been had on our campus. So I think that this could really start a conversation about resources that we are lacking and that maybe we should start to have.
Are there any questions for the author? Senator Zacharias.
Has there been any indication by housing or any other department that we do have students who are homeless?
Yeah, so specifically financial aid has stated that there are a lot of students who are under this McKinney-Vento identification standards, and that does go on their financial aid profile, so that is how we would be able to determine who we could maybe reach out to and who we could make aware of the resource and that sort of thing. So, yes.
Senator Majors.
Yeah, what's the time frame of this after passage? Like, would this go into effect for fall of 2020 if we were to pass it here?
Yeah, so it would go into effect for fall of 2020, and this would be an open scholarship, so it would be rolling applications. We wouldn't just open the applications for the time period of our regular scholarships, just so that obviously students are in need year-round, especially in these kinds of situations.
Senator Lepetsky.
For this specific scholarship, would there be any, I know you said it would be a rolling application, but would there be a crisis application? Say, I know some people become homeless very suddenly. What's the timeline on those applications being looked at?
So we do have a specific, I guess, what we call the hardship committee, and that is made up of 3 people, I guess, one from the Senate, one graduate assistant, and then, who's the other one? Oh, and then Lucas, the pro tempore of the Senate. So they would be able to get together immediately as the application comes in, and then we try to get those applications looked at within the week. And that would be, then processed through financial aid, and they try to do their processing within 2 weeks. So it would be pretty quick.
Senator Flores.
So I was under McKinney-Vento, the McKinney-Vento Act when I was in high school, but to my knowledge, the way that it works is that it no longer tracks students after they graduate. So how would you evaluate students who aren't incoming freshmen?
Yeah, so the way that I understood it is that financial aid receives that information and then follows up with those students about the resources that they may need. I'm not sure how it works in the financial aid office. I do believe, though, that they have that on record.
Senator Day.
Obviously, homeless is a rapid process that can affect anyone, and someone can also find a home. Would the scholarship be revoked if a student found a home or is no longer classified as homeless under this system?
I don't think that it would be revoked. They would have to meet the qualifications if they were to apply again for the scholarship.
Senator Wang.
My question is, last week we passed a bill about the information for scholarships like this. The information will be closed, that we don't keep any documentation, things like that, right? And then it's inside of the scholarship committee. And then with this, is that means financial aid gonna be involved in it?
Yeah, so all of the information is disclosed to financial aid anyways. They are under FERPA, they are under their own privacy acts. So COMA and CORA would only be in regards to our committee. So yes and no. Their financial aid documents aren't open per COMA and CORA.
Senator Zacharias.
I'm not quite familiar with the definition that this particular piece has on homelessness.
Mm-hmm.
Is it any student who is facing housing insecurity, or is it a more narrow definition?
Yeah, so I think that there should be a link to the McKinney-Vento Act if you keep scrolling. Yeah, right there. If you click on that, it defines it. We are going based off of that because it is a national identifier, so that way we keep things generalized, more or less.
Senator Nazir.
So I was looking at this bill, and on line 4 it said to enact the McKinney-Vento scholarship at $6,000 per year for students who are homeless, and then at the very bottom at line 27 it says to give up to $6,000 per year for students who are homeless. So would it be that exact amount, or does it vary from person to person?
Yeah, so we made it a little vague on purpose. So we are asking the Senate for $6,000 to set aside for the scholarship, but it will be up to the scholarship committee or academics committee to divvy out the money. We don't want to set it at you have to give out $6,000. I think at the beginning it was just clarifying we would like to set aside $6,000 a year, and then however it is determined by the academics committee will then go through that.
Senator Wayne.
My only concern is that, well, it's a question. Yeah, is that how we ensure to make sure the students' privacy was protected?
Yeah. And I think that is covered under the previous bill that we had passed to keep those documents, I guess, protected and private. That's a valid concern, but the application has to go through financial aid in order to get them that money. So there's no way that we can give them the money in-house.
Senator James.
Just for clarification, since you're asking for up to $6,000, I'm assuming that only one recipient will receive the scholarship every year, or is it multiple recipients? Or
no, so it would be more than ideally multiple recipients. It would be determined by the committee how much they want to give to how many applicants. So $6,000 across the year. Will be how much so $6,000 is the pool that we can choose from, and then however much we deem is necessary for each situation will then go out per semester.
Senator Lepetsky.
I know you said it goes through the committee to kind of figure out how to divvy it up. Is there any previews of questions that you would ask to essentially get that need and understand that specific need? Because people who experience homelessness, 6,000 really isn't that much, and that's divvying up if you want multiple. And so I just want to know what type of questions are going to be asked to get an accurate representation.
Yeah, so on the application we ask for a page essay about the issue that they're facing and how they would or how the money would help them, and if they would like more resources and more help. So that is one of the qualifications you have to turn in with the application. On top of that, you're right, it isn't a lot, but I think that this is a really good first step.
Can I? Yeah. Just to add what Mackenzie's saying, so when we talk to financial aid, they talked about the gap in aid to students and for homeless students, and so they gap, and this is partly where we got the number from, is they said the typical gap for domestic students is about $1,500, and then they gave us the typical gap for international students, and so we looked at the gap from aid that they typically would get versus what would cover the rest, because homeless students do have different needs than some who have homes, and so we looked at that gap, and that's where we came up the need. So they don't necessarily need the whole amount, but what is the gap from what financial aid they may receive as a student who is under this act versus what they would fully need to be there. So that's what kind of where we came up with the number. So it wasn't just an arbitrary number, it was guidance from financial aid of what is the gap that that we could help fill with this scholarship.
Senator Kahinde.
So I just wanted to know, would this be like a one-time scholarship, or it will continually go through the college years?
Yeah, so I think as long as they're under the qualifications of the McKinney-Vento Act, and they remain under that identification, they can reapply.
Senator Majors.
So when all $6,000 has been allocated, will students' applications be rejected, or will they carry over into the next year, or how would that work?
That's a good question, and I'm not sure that I would decide that. I think that would be the committee. I don't know.
So I think if the money is gone, I think SGA could look back into their reserves and see if they have money to allocate additionally. Because the scholarship period, it is a certain period, and then we would have to close them for this year and reopen them, but we could go ahead and reopen them for the following year. So I think it's up to you all if you would want to allocate more money, and then knowing that this is the first year, we're going to see what the need is, and if we get a huge number of applicants, then we can reevaluate that into the fees packet and student government budget for following years. So it was a baseline, and then we'll have to evaluate how we move forward. But I think that's something that student government could look at reserves as a possibility if there is a lot of applicants.
Senator James.
Yeah, going back to a previous senator's question about privacy of the applicant. If they were to receive this scholarship, would it go on like their transcript or any like documents that they received this scholarship for this reason?
No. No.
Senator Zacharias.
With this, is it intended to help the current situation that students are in, for instance, pay their rent for a month, or is it more leaning towards substantially putting them up for a semester so that they can succeed?
I think we were more so focused on closing the gap. I know when we talked to financial aid, they talked a lot about they do a lot and they offer a lot of, I guess, aid, but there is still that gap that students aren't able to make, and whether that go towards food or shelter or other amenities that they might need, that's up to the student's discretion, I guess, at that point.
Senator Mounts.
So if students have to reapply for this scholarship, is there going to be a precedent given to those who have already received it?
I think it needs to be a new application every... no, there won't be a precedent.
Senator Nguyen.
So this bill uses the McKinney-Vento identification standards, but because, as a previous senator said, that it's designed for children and youth, the first criteria says that it's for any children and youth who are sharing the housings of other persons due to economic hardship. And so I'm just wondering if you think this is subject to abuse by students who are living with others but aren't technically in financial hardship, but obviously aren't in the same type of design that the McKinney-Vento is actually made for.
So I guess we used these identification standards because that is what financial aid uses. I am not sure if it's going to be abused. I think that since this is the first year, we won't really know until it happens, you know. But the other aspect to this is that if we're keeping consistent with financial aid, it's much easier for us to go through and be like, yes, these students are in need and this is what we should do for them.
Senator Nazir?
So I'm not entirely familiar with the FAFSA process for other people. I've only experienced it for myself, obviously, but for those who aren't homeless, it does ask for your parents' income, and then later on it'll suggest how much FAFSA will think your parents will contribute. So is that different for homeless students, and is that taken into account when coming up with these amounts such as $6,000?
So as you said, I also am unsure. I don't know about the FAFSA aspect of it. However, I do know that obviously financial aid does take into account FAFSA and how they have filled that out. So I assume, yeah.
I know the answer if you need it. So homeless students are considered independent according to the FAFSA, which means that they're able to apply for different things like the Pell Grant, and it's not based off of their parents' income, but rather the income that they make. So if they make, for example, below the poverty line, then they are they're able to apply for the Pell Grant. So.
Awesome. Thank you.
Senator Lepetsky?
Okay, who would be deciding this? It would be the scholarship committee?
Yeah, so it would actually be the hardship committee. Which is academics committee.
Okay, and then, oh wait, that's a follow-up.
Senator Kahinde?
You said something about the scholarship closing the gap for financial aid. So is this gap for a month, a year, or a semester?
I believe it's per semester.
Senator Lepetsky?
Okay, another question. How exactly, so say we get multiple applicants for this, how would, I know it said a one-page essay, but what would be the deciding factor on who's deserving of that and non-deserving? How would that, I feel like there needs to be a standard. How would that be looked at?
So that's a valid concern, and I don't know really how to answer that because there's not a way to be well, this one is in more need than this one. I think it's going to be based off a first come, first served basis and how much each student is in need of, and whether or not we can turn them to, per se, other resources that we also have.
And I think it's also important to notice that because it's now the academics committee, it's going to be that body of your peers that will be making that decision, and that goes to even any of our scholarships. I think, sure, we can establish what are some of those baseline guidelines, but then I also would caution the Senate to put too many stringent clauses, I don't have a better word, clauses or requirements, because then you don't want to put yourself in a situation where no one is qualified for the money. And so I think looking at the guidance provided by both the Financial Aid Office, by the McKinney-Vento Act, and setting the standard for what the next session, what the Senate will expect of the academics committee in making the decisions for allocating that money. Because I think all of our scholarships set, here are the expectations, here are the qualifications, here is the eligibility. And what's tough about it is then that committee has to decide based off of the information that's given to them, based off of information through interviews if they have them, who are we going to fund based off of the most need. And that's the tricky thing it was a tricky thing for the scholarship committee, and it will be a tricky thing for the academics committee of determining based off of the information you have, who are you going to give the money to? Because unfortunately, we can't give the money to everyone, and that's what's tough.
I think to add on to that, we also met with financial aid, and we looked over the application. And the tricky thing with need-based scholarships is that they don't have a lot of solid qualifications. So with academic-based scholarships, you can say your ACT has to be this, your GPA has to be this, but it's a lot more difficult with scholarships like this that are need-based.
Senator Nazir?
Since it is an application process and it is kind of that first come, first serve, how how are we getting this information out to students, or how are we kind of letting them know that this is an option for them and that they can apply for it?
Yeah, so I guess my first answer is making it public, where it's going to be on our website, obviously, but additionally reaching out through financial aid to these students that are registered as homeless under the Office of Financial Aid Standards, and that way we're reaching that audience directly, and that they know that that resource is there for them.
I would add to that the care team. We get a number of students every year who report themselves as homeless, and so that would be another avenue through care team and CAPS that we could report out as a option for students.
And I think that will be good as well with the applications and the amount of applications we get. If we reach out directly to these students and give them, obviously, the knowledge about it first and foremost, they're going to be able to apply more and quicker.
Senator Zacharias.
I was wanting to ask why this would be reviewed by the academics committee instead of the hardship fund committee.
Because we're classifying it as an association scholarship. Because it's not, our hardship fund is specifically defined as a one-time need-based emergency. This would be a scholarship that's given to, like, through financial, like from us to financial aid to go and pay for tuition or other things, or if they've paid all the tuition, the money that's given back to them. Because this is an actual scholarship and not an emergency fund, the committee responsible for scholarship, which is now academic, would be the ones that would make that decision, because it's not a one-time emergency fund.
Senator Lepetsky.
Is there any way that, because the reason I ask about the academics committee, to echo a previous senator, is there any way that we can make like a sub McKinney-Vento scholarship that's crisis-based that could go to the hardship scholarship committee for more, like, because going into this type of thing is hard for people to talk about or even write a one-page essay about. There's a lot of trauma that comes up with it. There's a lot of things that mental health awareness needs to be brought up, and sometimes this happens suddenly. Some people get kicked out of their house. So would that be, that's a crisis?
So I think we're looking at this in two different ways, and I hear what you're saying. The hardship fund is developed for when sudden things come up. So if we have a student that either self-reports or we get information from CARE or whoever that says, I don't want to make this a joke, but if little Bobo eventually or automatically becomes homeless on Monday and we have an issue, an emergency, that is what our hardship fund is developed for a smaller committee and a shorter process of ensuring that a crisis has happened. How do we best support this student? So we'd receive that information, and then the hardship fund committee could utilize the hardship fund, because that would be a one-time emergency versus this being an actual scholarship going to pay for school or to help pay for school. So I think, and I know it because we're utilizing the terms of McKinney-Vento, we're basing it off of the guidance from that. This is establishing an actual scholarship to help pay for school, where the hardship fund, and in instances where crisis emergencies come up, would be the qualifier for the hardship fund money. So the money that exists for both the International Student Hardship Fund and the one that we are going to be presenting later to create a general hardship fund would be the basis of addressing a crisis like that. This would not be a crisis scholarship. I think to clarify that this is purely an actual scholarship to help a student pay for school. If an emergency comes up, then that would be the qualifier for our hardship fund, and they would fill out a different process and a different application that's a lot quicker and a lot less invasive. I don't have a better word, but so it's not you in front of a committee of 7-8 people. It's you in front of a group of 3 people that may not even call you to come in, because they'll just review the application and make a decision based off of, this is an emergency, this is an issue, let's help support them through this fund, instead of this being a scholarship. Because the hardship fund doesn't have a baseline of how many times, it doesn't have a baseline of how much, because there's some leeway in that if it's a crisis that this can't go to. So thinking about it separately, that this is purely a scholarship to help students pay for school. The hardship fund is being developed for these crisis emergencies that come up. That was a lot of talking, and I'm sorry. But does that clarify it?
Yeah, I guess I was just looking for more clarification because I've only heard of the International Hardship Fund.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a general.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so and that was one of the things that through when we started looking and thinking bigger picture of what's next, that's the next thing of sometimes our domestic students go through emergencies and go through a crisis. Are we providing help and support to them as an association? So we are currently working on looking at developing a hardship fund for our domestic students as well. We should have clarified that. Sorry. Does that make sense? Okay.
Senator Zacharias.
Would this scholarship being decided by academics make the students applying for this scholarship's names public?
No, the academics committee is also under the Privacy Act that we have instated.
Senator James.
So just to echo a previous senator's question, so when the academic committee meets and they go over this, it won't be on their agenda or records or anything that they submit to Shocker Sync or anything?
So it will show up that the committee is discussing the scholarship. It isn't going to show who. So they would be, like the bill, like last week's bill specified, they'd be holding that status of permanent select committee. I don't remember the actual name of it. So they're able to close those meetings. They're not public meetings, but we would still have to report that the committee had heard discussion on the scholarship. But like information about the scholarship, applications about the scholarship, all that would be closed under that permanent select status committee that was, or status that was created last week.
Senator Majors.
Sorry, I don't know if I'm missing something, but is this coming directly out of the SGA's annual or semester-long budget?
Yes.
Senator Wang.
After hearing Gabe's explanation, I think we have more picture of what this is about. Is it possible to add wording to add that this is for education support?
I would caution against it because this could be used in other areas. If, let's say, somebody has their tuition paid, but they need $50 extra for, a toothbrush or something. Just, it kind of boxes in the scholarship.
Any other questions for the author? Senator James.
And if passed by the second read, when will this go into effect?
Fall of 2020?
Senator Tubok.
Sorry, so that last part where you said if their tuition is paid for, there may be parts that we can, I guess what I want to know is if the tuition is not the most pressing matter, would it be more appropriate to, or would the committee be able to allocate the funds for, say, a hot meal or something instead of paying, $6,000 for tuition?
And I guess that's where we might point them in the direction of other resources. So I guess, I'm sorry, I might have worded that wrongly. What I meant was more so that I don't want to make this just an educational scholarship for the fact that there are instances that somebody may need this for something else, and if it's in the journal that it is strictly for educational purposes, if that instance comes up that somebody might need it for a different reason that we can't fix with other resources or help them out in a different way, I want this scholarship to be there for that person, in that situation. I don't know if that makes sense.
Senator Babin.
So I just like a little bit of clarification. So with, we're saying that this is a $6,000 scholarship, but we're saying, sorry, just asking for clarification, basically that we can give up to $6,000 per person, but we have $6,000 for the year. So potentially more people could receive money as long as we're not exceeding that $6,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions for the author? Okay, seeing none, thank you. And as this is a first read, we'll move into debate next week. And it's my understanding that SB-62-082 and SB-62-083 are tabled, or have been tabled from the committee, so we will skip over that for right now. And move into item D, SB-62-084. Co-equal branches of government and association restructure for efficiency, or CARE Act, authored by Michael Berth, Student Body Vice President, Crystal Zacharias, LAS Senator, Safety and Student Services Chair, Vanessa Cowden, Business Senator and Academics Chair, Ridget Kahn, LAS Senator, Ways and Means Chair, Aaron Mounts, At-Large Senator, Diversity, Empowerment and Inclusion Chair, sponsored and approved by the Rules and Administration Committee. Upon approval, to amend the SGA Code to restructure the association's leadership to create the Speaker of the Senate positions, establish a chair of the Budget and Finance Senate Standing Committee, revamp the Student Body Vice President position to reestablish separate but equal branches of government in order to best serve the students at Wichita State University and to create a more efficient student government association. Does the author wish to speak to this bill?
Yes. I hope you all have had a chance to read this bill. It is about 11 pages, so I'm going to paraphrase as much as I can going through. Essentially, the first part is just talking about like the Speaker of the Senate. So currently, right now, the Vice President is the head of the Senate. The President is the head of the executive branch, and the Supreme Court, or excuse me, the Chief Justice is the head of the judicial branch. So we found it weird that an executive member would be the head of the Senate. So we would be removing vice president or the vice president position from being he would still be the speaker, or they would still be the Speaker of the Senate. Not Speaker of the Senate, President of the Senate. However, the Speaker of the Senate would be the leadership position for that, which would be essentially similar with the way that we nominated both the President Pro Temps this year. It would just kind of be a nomination process. There would be a vote and discussion and et cetera, and then this would be at the first meeting of the session, and then they would elect the Senate themselves would elect a speaker. Moving past item 1 into item 2, again, this is just kind of essentially separating the current vice president position into kind of two positions. One that would be more on an administrative side, which would be the vice president, and then the Speaker of the Senate side. The President of the Senate will only be able to cast a vote in the instance of a tie, as it already is. However, the Speaker still technically has a vote because they are a senator. For Action 3, this is just a almost direct copy and paste from the duties for the Senate of the Vice President. For Action 4, we are basically that's establishing a Speaker Pro Temp, so kind of the same way how we have President Pro Temps. There would be someone who the Speaker appoints at the meeting that gets approved by the Senate that acts basically as the Vice Speaker in case the Speaker is not able to be there. We are also creating a position of the Clerk of the Senate, so we would be taking duties of minutes and other things like that from the DPR, and we'd actually have someone who deals specifically with those, and they are also keeping records of all senators as well instead of leaving that up to the Vice President. Action 6 is just again dealing with the way the Vice President works within Senate and kind of getting them away from that position. For Action 7, this is because we are cutting a lot. We would assume that the Vice President does 20 to 30 hours or 20 to 25 hours a week in Senate. Cutting all that out will not leave them with much. So we have decided that they will, whoever it happens to be the Vice President will serve on a select number of different university committees that are habitually empty from student representation. And so that's kind of a way to make sure that there is a student representative who is involved. to make sure that we are actually getting representation on those committees, and those are things like the Intercollegiate Athletic Association, publication boards, and the Radican Student Center board of directors. And then we're also any committee that currently has a executive head, such as the Budget and Finance Committee and Student Fees Committee and the Government Relations Committee, those will all be under now Senate Association committees, and so only senators will be able to serve on there, and they will have senator chair people as well, which will be appointed by the Speaker of the Senate, appointed by the Speaker of the Senate, approved by the Senate. Action 8 deals, again, with cabinet. We are also changing the kind of nature and name of the Chief of Operations to now Chief of Staff. Originally, there was like 2 positions that were combined into one, but now we realize that that was a not so great idea. So we're going back to it being the Chief of Staff. They are just monitoring initiatives and things like that. And they also have to deal with like official documentations. Action 9 is talking about basically standing committees, and so that's what I mentioned earlier. Action 10 is standing committees again. Action 11, succession of power. So for some reason we did succession of power of the way we do it, where so say if President Miller resigns, gets impeached or whatever, and is no longer able to serve in that position, all the people who serve as like the pro temps or the vice president all move up one position. So the vice president would become president, first speaker or first pro temp would become the new vice president, and then the second speaker would become the first, or the second pro temp would become the first pro temp. For some reason, we did that, and we don't think that's a good idea. So we are doing the line of succession as vice president first, then speaker of the Senate, then speaker pro temp. So you just move into, so say both the president and vice president go down, the speaker would become the new president and appoint a vice president, and the Senate would elect a new speaker. And so it gets rid of that weird where everyone just kind of shifts up one, where you really just, you either have, you essentially it's like the way the actual, like, our federal government works. And then for Action 12, this just regards nominations. Action 13 is talking about single nominations by the vice president. So the vice president will now be appointing, filling vacant seats with approval by the Senate. Kind of as it, so currently right now the president does it, approval by the Senate, the vice president would take over that. We're, it looks like, completely striking everything in Action 15. There's so much in here. I'm so sorry, y'all. There is adjustments on how pay is done. So currently, right now, the effects. So we did pass a bill that basically brings everyone to hourly. That doesn't, because it affects pay, doesn't really go into effect until next session. However, these changes again will make it very clear of like what pay will look like. Because currently, right now, it's the president works like 20 to 30 hours a week, and anywhere in between. So we are giving every person who is not only part of the cabinet, but also part of the Senate leadership, there is a set number of hours they work every week. And so that lays that out and how much they get paid. Same thing with Action 17, Action 18 and 19, or sorry, Action 18 also deals with pay. Action 19 deals with just like the abilities of the treasurer. It's nothing too crazy. And then finally, Action 20, finally here, talks about the association banquet committee, which kind of just clearly lays out like how we do the end of the year banquet. With that, I apologize for how long this bill is, but this is a very, very significant change, and I will take any questions you all have.
Are there any questions for the author, Senator Izzo?
So just for clarification, so you know how like Michael presides over the Senate right now? Mm-hmm. Will the Speaker of the Senate do that?
Yes. So the Vice President will still be President of the Senate, filling in for the Speaker as needed. If the Speaker and the Speaker pro temp aren't able to do it, or before the Speaker is actually elected. But that being said, almost everything, if not everything, will be done by the Speaker of the Senate.
Senator James.
Just never mind. So if this bill is to pass, when will it go into effect, and like will there be like new spots on ballots, or is it something that the Senate appoints from the Senate, if that makes sense?
So these changes will not, because the way, so not only do they affect pay, they also affect the way the election cycle works. So what will happen is, well, essentially these need to pass, this bill needs to pass next week, or the next meeting that we have. So if this passes, it'll go to vote by the student body because there are major constitutional changes in it. If that passes, we will see these effects in the 63rd session. So we could see this as early as or we can see this as early as April.
Senator Babin.
Would you mind just speaking on what exactly the role of the student body vice president would be as a whole now that we're taking away this major position?
So this actually frees up. So he will, they will still, as a vice president, fill in for the president as needed on various different committees or whatever happens to need to be done. They will still attend Senate meetings. They will serve as a basically ex officio member, only breaking ties, or if they need to be like a parliamentarian or something like that, just in case. However, if you look, it's more near the top of the bill. It kind of lays out specifically like what committees they'll be serving on, and they're also kind of the ones that oversee different projects and kind of like gather feelings from the like executive cabinet, and kind of like that way the president doesn't necessarily have to like focus entirely on like what the cabinet is doing all the time. President Miller would like to speak as well.
President Miller.
Okay, so just kind of an insight on that. A lot of, as student body president, a lot of my role is external, and so it's really difficult for one person to know what's happening on the outside and the inside. So really the whole removing the vice president as president of the Senate will really help with that understanding of internal things, and also make it so we have a solid representative in each different committee and whatnot that I currently serve on. It will really help out my position a lot and help communication throughout cabinet, Senate, all of that. Does that make sense a little bit?
Senator Day.
Why is the treasurer being removed from the Budget and Finance Committee?
So because we figured one of the main, I guess, ideas of this bill is to like finalize a full separation of powers between each branch of government. So having an executive member serving on a Senate committee is problematic. Currently, I mean. Okay, so we were just essentially that position will, if I'm correct, if I remember correctly, will be filled by a senator as well, and so it kind of also it's the same thing as a vice president. It kind of takes like it makes it so the treasurer can focus on like the internal part of like workings of like how SGA is spending its money, while the person who is like chairing that committee can focus on getting like students the money that they need. And President Miller has more to speak.
Okay, so along with that also, sadly the 2 student fees bills are tabled, but it correlates with that also. In those 2 bills, we're looking at making the treasurer the chair of the student fees committee and creating another appropriations process, which is done by the Budget and Finance Committee. And those 2 processes will be going on at pretty much the same time. So instead of overloading the treasurer, it helps spread that power, that responsibility also.
Senator Rizal.
Is Speaker of the Senate a paid position?
Yes. So all of the positions that are being created are paid positions. They all also have specific hours that they work, and specific pays as well. If you look deeper into it, the numbers might have changed since we have seen this bill about 2 weeks ago as the Rules and Administration Committee. We were able to, for more or less, only have to request an extra $3,000 to cover everything. We are significantly cutting the pay of a lot of the higher positions, and we are also cutting the hours significantly as well, so that we are able to pull a lot of money from there.
Senator James.
I believe you answered this already, but I'm still going to ask just in case you didn't. Line 25 states that the President of the Senate shall chair the Senate proceedings when necessary. So now that there is a Speaker of the Senate and a Speaker pro temp, what is the line of succession for this President of the Senate stepping in?
So the President of the Senate will act as the chair during the very first meeting of the Senate for the session. So then there would be a nomination process, etc., and then the Speaker would be elected. They would immediately come up, get sworn in, and start basically their tenure as chair. If for some reason, so say like both need to travel or both are sick or something like that, then the president can step in as like a last case scenario option to fill that position if both are gone. However, it's very rarely and only at the very beginning of the session will the President of the Senate really need to be the chair of the Senate. So it is something that's just like a very, very last case scenario.
Senator Babin.
So understanding that this is a very complicated and very confusing change to the Constitution, what is the plan to accurately and like holistically give the student body an understanding of what this is so that they can accurately vote if this passes and comes up in a constitutional amendment?
We will just have to, as best as we can, summarize and make it so that it's not like as rough of a read as it is in this 11-page bill. But we also just have to rely on our students who are voters to read through each of the amendments and make the most informed decision as possible.
And I think to add to that as well, there's only one aspect of it that's Constitution, so the other 10 million pages, that's dramatic, I know, but the other 10 pages won't be included in the vote that the students will look at. They'll only look at the actual constitutional part. Unfortunately, the Senate doesn't decide what the question is. That is up to the Elections Commission to develop the question. So just as they have developed all the other constitutional amendments, they'll develop the question for this, and then because the Senate themselves can't advertise X, Y, and Z question, it has to be the Elections Commission because it's under their purview. They would look at this, develop the best possible question to post to students, and then they would provide the information justification as they've done with all the other ones. But it would only be the constitutional part, not the other 10 pages that are included in the bill. Does that make sense? And if not, let me know.
Senator Nazir.
Was there a particular event where the positions we have now were creating problems that kind of led to these changes, whether that be within the executive branch or chair people? Was there like a particular moment in time where you saw a problem and wanted to make these changes?
So this is more of being proactive as opposed to being reactive. We are trying to help create the best atmosphere for senators to thrive. And this has been a project that we, myself included, as well as the executive branch, have been pondering and working on since the session even started. And this has been, this has been a project that we have seen as a necessity to just help SGA work better. And it's also just we've noticed through different journal reviews and things like that that there are little weird things going on in our Constitution. So we want to try to make the best atmosphere possible for everyone to work as best as they can. And Senator Zacharias will talk a little bit more.
And I think a big part of this is that our executive team, they're also students. They also have busy schedules. They're facing a lot of coursework. And so I think this is a really good change because it kind of splits up the duties and makes it more manageable and creates a better whole-rounded approach to this for our students, because we want to put our students first, and that includes our Senate and our executive team.
Senator Day.
Could you elaborate on the adjusted role of the position of chief of staff, which would replace the chief of operations position if this bill is enacted?
Yes, give me 1 second. So if I remember correctly, so they will no longer be serving as like the parliamentarian of the Senate. So, and they're going to be more of like focusing on kind of like assisting the president and getting documentation, getting all that sent out. So they're still going to do a lot of their like busy work that needs to be done by somebody, but it's kind of like removing, again, another executive member from the role of like being like presiding over the Senate, because currently right now we have 2 executive members who also are serve on the Senate, and so it's just kind of like weird that we're kind of like we have this like blurred line of like what is the executive branch and what is the legislative branch. Does that answer your question?
Senator Nguyen.
So just to clarify, with the clerk of the Senate position being created, so that's moving the power of doing minutes and keeping records from DPR to a senator that gets nominated and then they're paid, or can you clarify on that?
So because of the nature, and we all have chairs, have seen this in our committees, it's hard to have a senator also be a minute taker. They don't ever really get a chance to speak. And so it will be somebody from outside the association, and it will be a paid position. They'll only hold like I think 5 office hours a week just to get everything sent out as it needs, and they are also just so it's basically kind of like the chief of operations job, but like for the Senate, if that makes sense.
Senator Babin.
So it feels as though we've had a lot of bills come forward that are trying to adjust this problem, as you guys have been stating, about the like balance of power and separation of powers within the Student Government Association. If you wouldn't mind speaking about why this is a problem and why it's something that we need to be solved exactly, like why you want to solve this separation of power issue.
So first of all, separation of powers, checks and balances. I mean, we've all learned since day one of entering education that it is important. And we've also, just as chair people, as leader of the Senate, and also working with the vice president, we have just noticed that to be more effective, we wouldn't necessarily say it's a problem. More of it's something that needs to be like, it's not something that's like negatively affecting us right now. It's just something that is like could be concerning and that we want to take kind of a proactive approach against.
Senator Day.
In terms of the line of succession, in case, like for instance, if the president resigns or is impeached, would the changes of position, like if with the vice president becoming president and whatnot, be permanent, or would they just be temporarily there until someone else is appointed or whatever?
So it would be permanent. So say, for example, the president resigns from their position, the vice president becomes president, it appoints a vice president that gets approved by the Senate.
Senator James.
In response to a previous senator's question about pay and rate of pay, you answered that all new positions will be paid, but looking under actions 4 and 5, there are no like hours or like rate of pay there. So I just want to ask again, are these new positions being paid, and if so, what are the rates?
If you bring your attention to actions 16, I believe, through 18, so the president will be paid an hourly rate of $10 per hour. We're not capping, as we have in the past. This just helps better for budgeting and things like that. The vice president will be paid an hourly rate of $9.85 an hour. treasurer will be paid at $9.50 an hour, and then chief of operations would be paid $9 an hour. DPR would be paid $9 an hour. Chair people would be paid $9 an hour of each Senate committee. The clerk of the Senate would be paid $9 an hour. The student advocate would be paid $9.50 an hour. I am not 100% sure where exactly in the bill. I take that back. I found it. Give me 1 second. So give me just a second. I believe in Action 8, it mentions how many working hours a week that each like person will have. I am sorry, I'm not exactly sure what it is, but we can definitely get that to you. And then Senator Zacharias would like to speak on pay.
Okay, so most of the executive members, their pay is being lowered because they are having less responsibility. And the Senate leadership pay is rising because we thought that if we're going to acknowledge and give senators their own speaker and give chairs certain powers as well, that they should be addressed just as much as the executive leadership. So we shouldn't pay our executive leadership more than we pay our senator leadership. It should all be equal because they are all the leaders of the association.
Senator Flores.
To go off of a previous senator's question about checks and balances, so you said that we've all learned that checks and balances are important since like day one, but you haven't really elaborated on like what is why it's necessary in this instance and why it's important, and what concerns you hope to prevent through the separation of powers. So could you please elaborate on that?
I think one specific example would be like in the instance of like senator hours. So we are having an executive member who is approving and denying and like basically doing all of that and dealing with the Senate side. That is just concerning because it's like one branch of our government has more power than the other branch. So in this instance, the vice president can say your senator hours don't work, blah, blah, blah. And so for like, as a Senate, we should be concerned that that another branch can have more power over another, or that one branch can have more power over another. So that's like one specific example. So by bringing the person who deals with senators under, the actual Senate, that eliminates like that specific, that specific instance. And if you were to go through the journal and find I'm sure there are multiple instances of where something like this happens. Obviously, none of us know the journal by heart, so I can't give them exactly off the top of my head. But that can be like one specific example, just like one branch, such as the executive, like currently holds a lot of power over the Senate, when really we should be three branches working together, but also like making sure we're holding each other accountable. And so that allows the Senate to hold the judicial branch accountable and the executive branch accountable, vice versa for all the other two. Does that help answer and explain? Okay.
And just to elaborate on that answer a little more, I believe that if we look in our federal government, we don't see the vice president running the Senate meetings. We have the Speaker of the House. Just like that, we are trying to copy the similar system where we have Speaker of the Senate. Now, separating that, having that fine line, where the vice president is serving in the Senate as, the conductor of the meetings, it does sometimes draw away certain people from asking certain questions or stating certain things that are on their mind. With that separation, I believe it will allow many of us to be more open about the discussions we're having, and it will also allow us to have a little more power, which is where the checks and balances would basically kick in. Hopefully that answered your question a little more.
Yeah, and so sorry, the vice president of the United States does serve as Speaker of the Senate, but this is more of like the way our system works here at WSU. It's a unicameral house, but it acts basically like the House of Representatives at the federal level, if that makes more sense.
Senator Wright.
So I'm just wondering why you think it's appropriate for the Senate to reconsider the issue of compensation when we already passed a bill just several weeks ago addressing that very clause in the situation.
So the issue, the bill that we passed the other week, mainly addresses, so that's a bill that helps take a step towards this. So it does support the CARE Act. The other issue was, for the example, myself and one of the other chair people, we hold 2 positions at this university, myself in ODI and also here in student government. So for the first month, I didn't get payment because they were withholding my paycheck because I was technically a student assistant and also a non-student assistant, and you can't be both. So what that bill does, instead of paying us chair people as contract labor, and actually everybody who works for the student government as contract labor, we will become hourly. And so that bill, well, yes, it affects the way specifically like how we track our hours and how payment goes. This bill is specifically talking about how much out per hour we will get paid, and then also talks about how many hours we will work.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Nazir.
I guess I'm still kind of having a hard time understanding, like, the reasoning why we need to create new positions and move some away from some responsibilities. For example, approving senator hours. Like, I understand how that can be an issue with having like the legislative branch and then the executive branch telling us, oh, this doesn't count as such. So why can't we just move those responsibilities onto, say, another person or another position? Because moving the vice president away from the position as the speaker of the, or president of the Senate, I feel like that's one of the major roles of the vice president. So I still am having a hard time understanding as to why that can't be the vice president's role.
So there is the issue. So the vice president obviously does just an insane amount for Senate, and ultimately it is up to us as how we define positions and like what they do, and just talking with the cabinet and also being in this leadership position, it is noticeable that a lot of us are overworked and put a lot of time into this as well, and so we just felt that it is something that needed to be approached, not only because a lot of us are overworked, there just is a lot of inconsistencies in how things are done, and ultimately it is up to us to kind of decide like what these positions should look like, and so for us as your Senate leadership, but also working with the vice president, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here, but essentially we all kind of realize that this is a better way to go to help facilitate discussion within the Senate as well, but to also just kind of make sure that that us in these positions, well, not us, but people who are in these positions can thrive and do their best to not only like do a good job just being a cabinet member, but also representing their students. And so, and again, like there aren't currently, like, we're not doing this because like there's a member of this of SGA who's like abusing their power. We are doing this because we are just trying to take like a preemptive approach to making sure that like things don't go south really fast, and also just to like, I guess at least for me personally, I can't speak for the other chair people or the vice president or even the advisors, but for me personally, I just feel like it is something that will positively affect the way Senate works, and also just like help support everybody.
I also wanted to say on the matter that a lot of our team is overworked. I know President of the Senate, Michael Berth, does more than 40 hours a lot. So this would break up, oh, he's pointing up, okay. So this would break up his role, and we aren't really changing what we're doing with our budget. We're just creating more positions to handle the burden. Because it is a lot of work for one person, especially a full-time student who is here primarily for their education. And I think another thing that we are doing to separate the branches, especially adding the Speaker of the Senate position, is to be up with our counterparts in like higher education, because it's the University of Kansas that also does it this way, and numerous other universities. This way we can be up there with our peers and also make sure that our members that are appointed to these positions aren't overworked. So it might not necessarily be that we need to create these positions to avoid the power conflict, but also create these positions to make sure we're taking care of our own in Senate and the association.
Senator Day.
Sorry, I had some confusion with regards to lines 248 through line 252. First, it says the nominee shall be appointed by a 2/3 vote of the Senate, but in the clause beneath that and to the right, it says that a 2/3 majority vote of the entire Senate is required for a senator position, which is a distinct type of parliamentary procedure. So could someone explain that to me?
I think, hold on. I'm pretty sure, I guess the president will have to correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if he technically has speaking rights even though he's here. So what I'm pretty sure is so 2.4 specifically is addressing like just any nominee that's being appointed to any position, while 2.4.1 is specifically addressing a senator position that's appointed by the vice president. Is that correct, Gabe and or Michael? Okay. Okay, just making sure.
Senator Babin.
So, the permission for a brief preface? Like, can I preface my question with some stuff first?
Sure.
Okay. So basically, with the United States government, there's not anything above the government, whereas within our government there is. There's always going to be administration that can kind of do other things and they can kind of do whatever they want, and they are above us. And so my question is basically, should we be splitting and creating harsh lines between sections of the Student Government Association when maybe we should be acting as a whole unit to better push our issues up towards the administration, which is above us?
So I guess it really depends on your opinion. Ultimately, it's up to you to decide whether or not, what you want to do. In my personal opinion, I feel like that this bill, yes, it's creating lines in between the different branches of government, but it's also making sure that we can function better. And so it'll strengthen not only, yes, it does create these hard lines that does separation. However, it also takes the burden off of multiple members, if not all of the members, who serve in leadership positions in the Senate, which helps us better work together and also just helps share the workload. But overall, it can also help facilitate communication in between them because it allows us to be more honest with each other. And so, for the instance that one of the other chair people brought up, if the vice president is sitting up here being the speaker, there could be some concerns of well, should we say this, should we not? Whereas the Senate can make their decision when they are not the one who is presiding over us. So I think ultimately it's up to your opinion, your decision, and I would recommend to read in depth of all this bill. But I personally don't think creating these lines is going to break us apart. I think it's going to help us work together as a functioning whole instead of some of this weird quasi weird spot that we sit in and have sat in for the past 10 years.
So I want to say that I know that this is different, right? You're not children, but this is kind of scary because, right, how do you know what you're going to do if it's going to work? I think one of the things that when we started this conversation that I've always challenged your peers to think about is, how are we cultivating leadership from within? How are we preparing student body presidents to be effective in their roles? How are we preparing vice presidents to be effective in their roles? How are we preparing cabinet members to do the same thing? How are we preparing senators, when you look around the room, how do we prepare from internal of cultivating this internal leadership of student government? That isn't to exclude that students who aren't affiliate or who aren't sitting here in these rooms can't ever be a part of the student government or can't ever go into some of these roles if they want to. But I think the basis of how student governance here at this university and really at universities across the country work is, how are we teaching college students the functionings of governance? How are we teaching them the functionings of advocating and representing the needs of the people that elected you to hold these offices and these positions? The biggest thing that the biggest thing that I've always pushed when we were talking about this was, again, how are we cultivating leadership from within? How are we what are the steps up that if you are a second-year senator, you don't just have to sit on the floor and be a second-year senator. You could be a chair. I mean, first-year senators can do the same thing. But like your third year in Senate, how are we preparing you? Ideally, 3 years into office, you're the most expert of how the Senate should operate and function. What are we doing with internal leadership and preparing them to step into other roles, to prepare newer members to do the same thing? So I think that's one of the things that I would challenge all of you all to think about is, while this is different, this is scary, this is the unknown of how it's going to work and implement. I mean, let's be honest, we don't know how it's going to work, but that doesn't mean that, and because of that, there's also the sense of, we have an opportunity to create internal leadership to enter into these positions, to continue the strong work and the continuity of student governance. It's always healthy, it's always good, and I'm going to be the first one to say it's always important to have an influx of in and out of leadership within the association, but then also how do you prepare strong people from day one to continue the work that the previous session had, or to revamp the work the previous session had, or whatnot. So I want you to think about it from that lens as well, of how are we cultivating internal leadership to enter into positions that can take a lot of time and a lot of work. And I've only been here now for 2.5 years, but I've heard the same thing from chairs every year of, we're not prepared to be chair people of our committees. Because you step into that role and you have to be a senator, and then you have to lead a team of senators and then lead the process of it. I don't want to speak for you all, that's not, I don't know, that's a thought of yours, but that's a thing that we hear often. And in my experiences of advising student governments now for almost 7-8 years, the same thought of, people aren't prepared to enter into positions because they're thrown into it, or they have to be. And you may get the year where no returner wants to do it, so new people have to do it. But again, it's a system in which you are developing effective student governance from day one, instead of having to wait 6 months, 3 months into your session to be effective. Not that that's us, but thinking of, how do we get people ready day one instead of 3-4 months into the roles. And I think it's going off of our good friend Senator Kendrick over there of, you got to have the audacity to think about things differently. I got you. That was a good one earlier. That was a good one. To legislate, right, but now I'm interpreting it differently. You've got to think about things in big picture and not be afraid to do that, but then challenge things that need to be challenged and question things that need to be questioned, but then from that lens of, how are we cultivating leadership from within? I know I talk a lot. I'm sorry.
I would also say, worst case scenario, we tweak it if this doesn't work out. Because I personally don't want to sit here and wait for something to go wrong. I'd rather take the active approach and make sure that things go right the best we can. And so if, say, like, oh crap, like maybe 6 chair people is too much, I think that's the new number, like maybe we go down to 4, like we can always tweak that. And so I think trying new things is going to be something that breathes life back into SGA, because you can see how empty it is tonight, and how we can't even appoint people. So doing something new, I think, is going to do something that helps helps support Senate.
Senator Flores.
So this would be creating a number of new positions, and given that SGA already struggles to get senators as well as people in cabinet positions. For example, chief of operations has been vacant for how many weeks now? So I'm just wondering how we would be able to fill these new positions that we're creating when we're already struggling in the status quo.
So I think this bill does a lot to make sure that we don't have people leave our seats because it lessens the burden. Instead of our president of the Senate having to do over 45 hours a week, we have two people who do two different jobs and bring home something that they can be proud of every day. That way we have more people who want to be engaged because it's not so terrifying to step into those positions. SGA, for a lot of people, when they step into SGA is their life. They're there every day. And we want to create the opportunity for people to be in the leadership in SGA without having to make it every aspect of their life. So by creating these new positions, we create more opportunities for people to become leaders in our association without having to give up any other aspects of their life that they might find valuable.
Senator Nazir.
Considering that the authors of this bill were four of the chairs and the vice president, how many senators did you reach out to discuss this bill or ask them how they felt about it, considering that it is affecting them as well, since we are changing the leader of our Senate? How many people did you reach out to? Since it was mainly chair people, how many senators that aren't in a chair position did you reach out to?
I will yield my time to the vice president. Do it.
Hi. So, who all did I reach out to, or we rather? Technically everybody. While we were devising some of these, yes, it was within mainly cabinet because that's the positions that would need to split. And that was more figuring out, hey, if we split this, what does each one look like? And we also talked with Senate leadership because it does affect Senate. How does this look for most of senators? That's what you see today. But I did hold on Tuesday all day a meet where any senator could come in and discuss any issue they may have with it. I'm again going to hold the same, welcoming any of the other authors to do the same on the following Tuesday. So I wanted it to be a group discussion, but for these kind of changes with the election coming up, they have to be done before this, not session, but semester ends, because you can't affect the election until then. So we kind of hit a deadline where we had to put it on the floor, and the next step would have been talking to everybody, and so that's why we're reaching out to all of y'all while going through this process, so that we hit the timeline, but you have what the time you need to say what you need to say and change what may or not change what comes. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess what I was kind of leaning towards was not getting our input like right now, like during, like when the bill has been written, but more so before or when you're starting the bill, so you can also get the input of the Senate rather than just the leaders. If that kind of makes sense, like kind of getting the input prior to making all of these adjustments.
I still have to be recognized.
Vice President Berth.
To talk on that point, so communication is a two-way street, right? As we are talking on it on our level, it should be filtering down through the leadership to each of you and then back from you to the leadership, similar to how your constituents filter their voice through you and likewise to us. That's kind of how I saw it. I don't know if that gives you any extra guidance on where that was going, but thank you for raising your concern.
And I will admit, so prior to the writing of the bill, we did not reach out. But also keep in mind that 3 of the 4 of us on this, who are leaderships in this position, have been in Senate for well over a year now. And so we know what it's like to be from the other side, and to see it from the side as a senator, relatively, we functioned mostly the same way in the last session as this one. And so I will admit we did not reach out to everyone as we should have, but we still are holding these talks and things like that. And I can guarantee you, and I can tell you that the day that the president of the Senate held these talks this last Tuesday, this last Tuesday, there's only like 3 senators that showed up. So I feel like that's not necessarily a failure in our part, but also like we do encourage you to all come and speak if you can.
And I just wanted to add a part. Yeah, we kind of messed up there. We didn't reach out to all of our fellow senators, but I feel a big part of the people who work with the executive branch are the leadership, and this is so we talked a lot amongst ourselves because these were the roles that are being affected, and so we are also here today to answer any of your questions before we debate on it next week. So please, any questions that you guys have, bring them up, because this is the time now to ask them. And while we didn't go out and ask you guys beforehand on your input, and we should have, I think that we should rather, instead of focusing on what we didn't do, try to solve the issues now and answer your questions so you have the best knowledge of this process for debate in the next meeting.
Senator Nguyen.
So my question is twofold. So the first part has to do with going back to the clerk of the Senate. So in that, I know that there are a lot of other positions where there's a clear delineation of powers, but for this one, is there a person that would fill that role if that clerk of the Senate is not filled? And then the second question is, given that first question, was there ever a fear when you deliberated over the bill that cutting down hours for leadership positions but creating new ones might also create a problem if the new positions are not filled, so then the old positions are underpaid and also overworked?
So to answer the first part, if I remember it correctly, so if I remember correctly, and this is if I remember correctly as a direct quote from Gabe, for the clerk of the Senate, we will make do if that position is not filled, because this was the very same concern I brought up during our deliberations over this. As for the second part, again, we won't know how many people are going to be interested until they try it. And so that's just a risk that we have to take, and I think it is a necessary risk as well, to just try out something new and try out something that we hope and at least we think will help support this, help support the Senate and help fill these empty positions that we've seen vacant.
Senator Babin.
I just wanted to ask specifically Vice President Berth, where were we informed that there was going to be a time when we could come visit you on Tuesday? Because I don't see it in your email that you sent out, and I haven't seen it anywhere else, so I'm just curious how we were supposed to know about that.
So part of this ties back to an earlier question I heard, and some of that has to deal with willingness to talk to myself or individuals in this position. So was it the last 2 reports I gave in Senate? I think it was 2, might have been 3. Anyway, with that, I did mention that we were having discussions about splitting certain positions, to which nobody came and talked to me like, hey, you mentioned you were splitting positions. What exactly were you talking about during that? I did hear that some of you were talking amongst yourselves about it, but never coming essentially to the source of the discussion. To your point, when you were informed, so was it last week's email? Or not last week's, for this week, when it was pushed out, and you're saying it wasn't in there? So that's my fault. I had pretty sure I had put it in there, but obviously I did not. So that's my fault for not including that.
With the motion,
Senator James.
motion to extend the meeting till 10 o'clock.
So it does require a second.
Second.
Oh, gosh. Senator Wright with the second. What was the time you said?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock, okay. So it is not debatable, and you can amend it. But it is a majority vote. So all in favor of extending the meeting to 10 o'clock, please raise your hand. All opposed? So this motion does pass by majority consent, and we will move the adjournment time to 10 o'clock. Were there any other questions for the authors at this time? Senator Castillo?
Going back to a previous answer to a question, and this might be more of a question directed towards Gabe, but you mentioned how when you were having the discussion with the authors of this bill, you were pushing them to think of how to cultivate leadership. Was there any talks of how to cultivate that leadership with our current system instead of introducing a new system?
In full transparency, no. I don't think, no, we did not. Yeah. I don't have a better answer. Sorry. Yeah. But no, we did not. I will say that this bill is not just only about cultivating leadership as well. It's there are so many different things that this bill kind of like, and small and some big ways affects, and so just knowing from us and all the chair people, like, you know, we have, and from even the vice president, we have set hours. We definitely work more than those set hours. So it's just something that in multiple different ways affects the way that leadership works. And so yes, we didn't talk about how to do it in our current system, but this is a way not only will it facilitate leadership, but also will just make everything easier for everybody, if that makes sense.
I also just wanted to add a small point. So a previous senator actually came to me. He has since resigned, but he was saying that these positions for leadership in SGA aren't accessible to everyone. I think by lowering the demand and the time commitments for these, we're opening them up to more students, students who can't commit to work 30 hours for the association, but can commit to 20, can commit to 10. We're providing more opportunities, I believe, and providing it to be more accessible to students who have other constraints on their lives.
If I may. Thank you. So one of the other things we did consider is we looked back at some of like the exit interviews. Interviews is more like survey, but also statements from previous members that were in these positions and what they had to say or what they felt the time commitment was, too heavy, not heavy enough, whatever the case may be. So we did consider past as well as present in those discussions.
Senator Wright.
Can I ask who you talked to get that information? Can I ask who you talked to, like in people in previous positions?
So during the election, or just after, we had, or I had rather, a few discussions with Anicia Brumley, who was a chair, one of our committees, Diversity Task Force at the time, now DEI. Isaac, was it Riviera or Rivera? Riviera. One of those. Sorry. Also had a few comments to make about his position. I was in talks with Andrew Martin, who was a former director of public relations, and I know I did run through our previous coup. Those are all that are coming to the top of my head at the moment.
Was it Matt Madden? Was that?
Yeah. Wait, for the coup? The coup that I talked to was Kylie. But I believe one of our other senators talked to Matt. I believe, right?
Excellent. Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the Senator Nazir?
So do you think this is an appropriate bill to pass considering the lack of senator input, considering that in future sessions, any of us could fill a chair position or an executive position, and we didn't really take part in making this really large decision? Do you think this is appropriate to pass at this time then?
If I may. Sure. So the one thing I would counter with is, this is the first read. By no means is this the end state. Senate still has its chance to make amendments prior to the second read through discussions with any of the authors, and as long as the authors deem it as a friendly amendment, it can be made on the spot with no vote. But it also provides time for senators to think those up. We are not having a meeting next week due to the break, and so you have I was going to say ample time, but maybe a little less than ample, but you do have a good chunk of time in which to think this over and have those discussions with the authors after tonight, before we even get into the voting or amendments. So, yes, is it cutting it a little close, but do I feel that the Senate's voice is left out? No, because there's still an opportunity for that to occur. I don't know if my other authors feel the same as me.
I will definitely agree with the President of the Senate. Yes, there's been a lack of input, but that doesn't mean necessarily that there isn't, that by the time this passes or doesn't pass or whatever we all as a Senate decide, that there won't be. And so we definitely encourage all of you to come visit our office hours, as always, which is, I know all of us chair people push. Please come talk to us because we are willing to listen. This was just something that was relatively time sensitive, because we realized we were like, we can't, because of the way the Constitution works, yada yada, we can't affect elections. So if we weren't able to get this to the Senate before today, we would not see these changes until I was a senior at this university. And so we thought it was important to get it out there, have you all read it, look over it, interact with us, because the other thing is, you all see Senate as the side from your position. May I ask, how often do you try to look at Senate from the position of the chairs and also the position of the executive branch? And so that's the question I have to leave with all of you. And so I would encourage you all to think about that over the next 2 weeks, as we try to do every day.
And I just want to add, on Thursdays, which is tomorrow, all of us chairs have an overlapping time of office hours, which is 2 to 5 p.m. All of us are usually in the SGA office, as well as the President of the Senate.
Are there any other questions for the authors of the bill?
Lucas. Senator Nazir, would it be helpful if there was outside of that Thursday time, would it be helpful to have like set times where people could come to the office during Senate hours, other times like that, to be able to ask questions or to provide additional feedback? Doing it on the floor of the Senate, let's be honest, it's going to get a little messy. But would it be helpful if they outside of those times, if there were other times where there could be drop-bys by senators to come and ask questions, suggest changes, make recommendations, provide additional input? Would that be helpful?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Your hours would be a good time, as well as maybe even before committee meetings that happen before Senate. I think that would be a great time, just because everybody is
here already.
Right,
Yeah.
everybody is coming. Or if we come a little bit early, that would be great. Just so if there are class conflicts during their senator hours or their chair hours, I feel like Wednesdays before committee meetings would be pretty good.
Also, we are not bound by our chair hours. If you just email us, we will set up an appointment. So, yeah, all of us are open to setting up appointments. You don't have to. If you can't come during our chair hours, please let us know, because we have no idea what your schedules look like.
And regularly, we're all in the office at 5 p.m. before our committee meetings. So it's not officially our office hours, but we're there from 5 until now.
Actually, it is officially Senator Cowden's office hour.
Any other questions for the authors? Seeing none, as this is a first read, we'll move into debate next week.
Point of information.
Senator Nguyen.
Can you just let us know about how many more bills we need to discuss tonight? Is it 4?
4.
Okay, with a motion then?
Senator Nguyen.
Motion to take a 5-minute recess.
This does require a second.
Second.
Okay, this is a majority vote, so all in favor of taking a 5-minute recess.
Can I modify the motion to say 10?
There's a modification of the amendment. Senator Nguyen.
Yeah. To 10 instead of 5 minutes.
Is there a second? All those in favor of taking a 10-minute recess, please raise your hand. Thank you. All those opposed? This motion does pass with majority consent. We will take a 10-minute recess.
Come back at 9:33.
2 minutes. Senators, find your seats. Hey, some of these excused. All right. Since we took a recess, I figured it was a good time to swap roles. Huh?
Nothing. You're doing great.
That's fine. That's fine. However, since we did take a recess, we will have to call roll again to get us back into order. So when I call your name, please answer with either present or here. Senator Babin.
Present.
Bradley. Senator Brown. Senator Castillo.
Present.
Senator Cowden.
Present.
Senator Cunningham is excused. Senator Day.
Here.
Senator Ezel.
Here.
Senator Flores.
Here.
Glover is also excused. Senator James. Senator Kata. Senator Kahinde. Senator Kendrick.
Here.
Senator Kennedy. Senator Khan.
Here.
Senator Lepetsky. Senator Majors.
Here.
Senator Mattson.
Present.
Senator Miller is excused. Senator Kate Miller. Senator Morgan. Senator Mounts.
Present.
Navarro is excused. Senator Nazir.
Present.
Senator Nguyen.
Here.
Senator Sanchez.
Here.
Senator Tubak.
Here.
Senator Wang.
Here.
Senator Webb.
Present.
Senator Wright.
Present.
Senator Zacharias.
Here.
I saw that. So we have exactly met quorum with 20 in attendance. Simple majority will be 11, 2/3 of present will be 14, and 2/3 majority shall be 26. With that, I believe we were at item E. Is that correct, before we did? Because we just finished the CARE Act and moving into the next, right? Making sure I'm picking up in the right spot. So with that, you got it pulled up? 85. So, SB-62-085, the Individual and Organization Funding Revision Act, authored by Colleen Osterman, our treasurer, sponsored and approved by the Budget and Finance Committee. Upon approval, this will amend the Association Statute 27 to revise the individual and organizational funding allocation regulations to better represent the needs of the students and organizations we serve. Many of the regulations in this statute were not realistic for the lives of our students, and the committee wanted to resolve these issues. The committee also sought to make the regulations clearer so that the students and organizations could use our legislation as a guideline for applying for funding. Does the author wish to speak to this bill?
Point of privilege, can you please make the screen bigger, or the text bigger?
Please let us know when it is big enough. I got a thumbs up.
Hey everyone. Excuse me. This bill was built by the Committee of Budget and Finance to resolve some of the issues that we commonly see in the Budget and Finance Committee with individuals and organizations who apply for our funding. Like I said in my report, the comments on the right were written by me, but I tried to reflect the ideas of the Budget and Finance Committee. If any Budget and Finance Committee member sees anything that they think is wrong in the comments, please do not hesitate to let me know.
Are there any questions for the author? Seeing none, thank you. As this is the first read, we'll move into debate and vote on this item next week. Or not next week, next meeting. Moving into item F, SB-62-086, Election Commission Composition and Compensation Improvement Act. Yeah?
Yes.
What?
I was just making sure she knew she's...
Oh, I thought you said somebody had a... Anyway, the Improvement Act, authored by the Ways and Means Committee, sponsored and approved by said committee, shall, upon approval, amend the association's election statute in order to decrease the amount of positions for the election commission while increasing the productivity and effectiveness of the commission. Additionally, amend the compensation of the officials. Association officials statute. As such, Act will also adjust the pay and hours worked by the commissioners before and during the election period. Does the author wish to speak to this bill?
Okay. So we are changing the structure and the compensation of the election commission. We are taking it from 6 members to 3, mostly because we felt like there wasn't enough work to go around, and a lot of people who were on the commission would maybe do something for the first week and then not do anything for the rest of however long the commission lasted. And one of the senators who worked on it served on the election commission last year and raised some concerns with us. So we are shortening it from 6 to 3, and then we are no longer paying them in sum but hourly, if that's correct. Yeah. Basically, so it can work more effectively and improve the voting experience for our students.
You are an author, you have the right to speak.
All right, and just to elaborate with the positions that are being taken out, we have Commissioner for Regulations. Their job was to basically make sure that, no one's like cheating in elections, and honestly, there wasn't much to do for them. So their job was being given to is being given to the Deputy Chief Commissioner, as they don't have a lot on their plate compared to the Chief commissioner, which who is basically doing majority of the work, and they have a lot on their plate, and they get paid $400 for the entire election period, and they don't get anything more than that or less. The other two positions are election events and marketing. Now, for election events, they're basically booking rooms, making sure that the debates are going right. For marketing, they're basically creating posters and making sure that people know about what's happening, and they just have to post things on time. Now, that position or those positions do not require a lot of time, so those two positions are being combined into outreach, which is outreach's job was basically to only table and make sure that, hey, you know when the election is happening. And so those three positions can be combined into one, and therefore the workload doesn't have to be on three different people for like a job that can be done by one person, and that person has a job to do the entire time, rather than maybe doing at the beginning of the election and then just getting paid for the rest of the time that they are there, but they're not doing anything. Now, going into pay, for the chief commissioner, they got paid $400, but and that's honestly, $400 is not a lot to work on elections for like 3 months. And so they will be, what this is changing to is $7.25 per hour. So, and we have also required them to work for at least the chief commissioner, 15 hours, instead of, having no time limit and basically being paid $400. For the other two positions, we have also raised those to $7.25, but since their job isn't as difficult or not a lot of like the election commissioner, their hours that they would need to work has been put down as 10 hours per week instead of 15. So yes, the election commissioner is being paid 15, while the other two are for 15 hours, while the other two positions are being paid for 10 hours. And I stand for questions.
Senator Wright.
So, who is going to take on the administrative burden shifting from a lump sum payment system to now having to track hours worked and stuff like that? I'm just wondering how that's going to be done.
I believe it's Gabriel, right?
Oh, yes, Gabe nodded his head, so yes, it will be him.
Any other questions? Senator Zacharias.
Would the people on this commission be now paid bi-weekly, or would it still be awarded to them at the end of the election?
Okay. So the payment part will not go effect for next semester or the next election, because I believe that has already been decided. Sorry, what? Okay. Yes,
Sorry. Yeah, because of the clause with compensation, you can't change the compensation in the middle of a fiscal year. So that number with the hours would go into forced to have to go into the effect in the following year. When it happened, it would follow regular student payroll, since we changed the compensation clause to require student employee payroll. So they would be paid every 2 weeks when this goes into effect in the 63rd session.
Any other questions for our author? Senator Wright.
With a motion, I motion to extend the meeting to 10:15.
Second.
Senator Babin with the second. What time did you say? 10:15. If there are no objections, we will extend our meeting to 10:15. Seeing none, it is so ordered. That being said, are there any other questions for our authors? Seeing none, thank you so much. This being its first read, we will move into debate and vote on this item next meeting. Moving into item G, FB-62-015, Organizational Funding Bill, authored by Colleen Osterman, SGA Treasurer. Sponsored and approved by the Budget and Finance Committee. Upon approval, this will allocate organizational event funding to the Iranian Student Association for the purposes of, I'm probably going to say this wrong, Yalda Night event at the amount of $1,350. Does the author wish to speak to this bill?
So Senator Zacharias brought it to my attention that the text of each funding bill, that the SGA, journal, I'm very tired. The SGA journal requires the text of each funding bill to contain the name of the party requesting funding, the amount of each line item in the requested budget, and the amount recommended by the Budget and Finance Committee, the total amount allocated by the funding bill, and the total year-to-date allocations made from the applicable fund, and then that they also be, how would you say, like organized as all of the other Senate bills. And so that's why the funding bill looks like this today. The other thing is that at the end of the bill, if you want to scroll down, it says that it, sorry, is it there? Yeah, a little bit up, sorry. It denotes the amount that has been allocated in year to date, but that doesn't actually reflect the amount of money that we have spent, and that is because when we allocate money, sometimes a organization will spend less than we allocate, so it's more, it shows that more money has been spent than has actually been spent. Does that make sense to anyone? Obviously, I can stand for questions.
Are there any questions for our author? No. Seeing none, and it has been noted as being timely, we will move directly into the debate period.
With a motion,
Senator Mounts.
I move to pass by unanimous consent of the Senate.
Any objections? There has been an objection. Thus, we are still in the debate period, if anybody wishes to debate at this time. Senator Babin.
I move to call the previous question.
Pretty sure that requires a second. Second. And check my notes for what vote it requires. Where did you go? Requires 2/3. Senator Mounts has the second. Seeing that we need 2/3, all those in favor, please raise your hand and hold them high. For those that don't know, I got you, this would end the debate, and we would move directly into voting. All those in favor, please raise your hand and hold them high. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you. All opposed, same sign. I had to type that one in. With 20 in favor, it does meet its 2/3 of present requirement, so we will move directly into the voting period on this item. All those in favor of awarding the funding as is, please raise your hand and hold them high. All opposed, same sign. FB-62-015 has passed its simple majority requirement, receiving 20 total in favor, 0 against, and 15 abstentions. Does that one say 15 as well? Moving into item H, FB-62-016, Individual Funding Bill, authored by Colleen Osterman, sponsored and approved by the Budget and Finance Committee. Upon its approval, it will allocate individual funding to Vishal Sharma, sorry if I mispronounced your name, for the purpose of conference travel at $400, and allocate individual funding to another one. Olusolo? I definitely butchered that one, sorry. Olusola, for the purpose of conference travel in $600. Does the author wish to speak to this bill? Are there any questions for the author? Seeing none, we'll move into the debating period.
For the motion.
Senator Wright.
Motion to adopt by unanimous consent.
Any objections? Seeing none, FB-62-016 has been adopted with unanimous consent of the Senate. Go back to my list. With that, and I do believe that the first two senator positions were tabled, am I correct?
Yes.
So we'll move past those swearing-ins. The student fees committee member that was or was not appointed? We will catch him next time. With that, we'll move into section 11, remarks and announcements. Is anyone wishing to speak? Senator Moutz.
Hey y'all, I just wanted to address real quick the, I guess, preparedness that senators may or may not have. There were a lot, and I mean just like an insane amount of questions asked tonight that were like clearly in the bills that were brought to the floor. So I just would ask that since we all meet on a Sunday of all days at 5 p.m. to make sure that you guys can get the bills in time on a Monday, that you please read them. Because there's nothing like sitting up here for close to an hour, and I'm sure the DPR can feel the same, that asking questions that are clearly laid out in a bill, we shouldn't be asking those questions. We should be asking questions for clarification, not for just getting general information that is in there. So that's my 2 cents on it. The other thing is, obviously, with the motion to call the previous question, a lot of you looked confused. I would highly, highly recommend bringing your cheat sheet that was so kindly provided to you by the president and vice president to use during meetings for making motions. Thank you.
Senator Babin. Senator Babin. Mike.
So sorry. I'll just repeat everything I just said. So I applaud the Senate for the discussion that we had today. I would like to ask that we put as much passion and consideration into the bills that pertain to things outside of the Senate. Almost all of the bills coming forward this session have been internal, and there are more external issues that we need to be addressing. I'm as guilty as anyone of not putting forward legislation, but we need to be putting as much passion and effort into the external issues that we were more elected to fulfill than just adjusting the internal operations. Second part to my announcement. I feel like it's incredibly disheartening to feel as though the leadership of the Senate wants to make changes that affect everyone without the opinion of the rest of the body because they've been here for over a year. I'm not less important or less a member of the Senate because I haven't been here for a year. And so it was incredibly disheartening to hear that, especially from the leadership. And the last thing that I wanted to plug is Gamma Phi Beta and Mu Delta Alpha are having an intersectional empowerment tomorrow from 11 to 1 in the RSC and 260 there. There's going to be some free snacks, fun events, games, information. It'll be cool. Please join us.
Senator Lipetsky.
Okay. kind of echoing a previous senator, but I would just like to maybe put out there, I think it would be very beneficial for us to have a platform of senators being able, or leadership, to tell us what exactly they're working on in one place, because I feel like a lot of us felt as though we were left in the dark. I know you had talked about it with me specifically, but but I think it would be a good thing to have it in one place so we know what we're working on, especially with like the McKinney-Vento Act. Like, I would have loved to be a part of that, but I didn't know that it was happening. And so I think if we could, and I think it would help senators become more accountable as well if we had that all out there. And I know you guys say you have office hours, and I respect that and I get that, but I think it would really be helpful to have it on hand, and I think a lot of senators would feel that is useful.
Before we move on, I'm going to actually suggest something. So each cabinet member, as well as the committee chairs, currently runs a Trello page that has everything that their committee is doing or our position with our goals and things like that. So one, we can put things we are working on up there. I mean, there are the goals of what we're moving towards, but if in sake of, say, legislation that may or may not be coming, we could post like, hey, we're working on this, this is what it's hoping to do. All of that is open to the public, so anybody can go and view those pages. I would suggest that senators also make a Trello and join their committee pages. You would have to contact your committee chair, as they are the admins for those pages, to allow you access to them. But that is my suggestion. Take it as you may. And I am definitely open to other suggestions that may work. But with that, Senator Flores.
Hi. So with the piece of legislation regarding the McKinney-Vento scholarship, I know that a lot of people had questions that other people couldn't answer through no fault of their own, just because they don't go through the processes. But as a student who qualified under the McKinney-Vento Act in high school, and then is now like navigating the process of like renewing that once no longer a minor, I can answer a lot of the questions that people had. And so if people want to talk to me after the meeting, I can answer probably a lot of the questions that you have.
Sorry, your head was in the way. Director Haas.
I think Kylie had a very good point in that we're not communicating so much, because I would have loved to have those opinions on the bill as well, because obviously I've never been through that situation, and so I would like to see it from your point of view as well. And like Kylie said, she would have liked to be in those discussions. So I think we all should be utilizing our communication platforms a little bit better. Just an idea I had was maybe posting to the Facebook page when you do have an idea, because like Matthew Tucker did, he put out the things that he was looking at working on and tried to gauge a feeling of how much the Senate wanted to help and where they wanted to help and that sort of thing. And so I know that I didn't do that, but it's just an idea. Maybe we could all come together and do that.
Senator Wright.
Motion we move back to swearing in on the agenda. Can we do that? Now that Senator James is here.
So, what I would say to that is technically that is a appointment by the president. She would then have to sign said legislation before that would get in, and I want to get in the practice of having it actually approved before swearing somebody in, because if they are sworn in and then not signed, I know it sounds ridiculous because it's the person that's put them forward, but until it's finalized, I would say no. But is it possible to move to an item on an agenda? Yes. Senator Mounts.
Alrighty, as a sort of right of a reply, I never meant any negativity by saying that I've been here longer than any of you. I was just more to clarify my statement. Going back to that, I've been on both sides, and so I do admit that we are at fault as the executive branch and the leadership of the legislative branch. We are at fault for not reaching out. However, we still have 2 weeks for you all to bring your opinions, and so I would highly encourage you all to please share with us if you have anything. Please don't let any feelings of if you have your concerns about this bill, please let them be known and not just let it fester for 2 weeks and then we get into a very heated debate over this bill and on December 4th. So with your concerns, please reach out. Obviously, by what I said, I never meant any negativity. I am glad to work with all of you because I am glad to see a Senate full of new faces because that's something that I think is important to bring new ideas into it. So yeah, that's what I meant by that.
Senator Flores.
I had a question. Do we have to do 1 or 2 senator hours this week?
That would be 2.
Point of information.
Senator Mounts.
Has the president signed the bill yet?
No.
With the follow-up.
Before we get to your follow-up, it's remarks and announcements. You don't have to do follow-ups. Senator Mounts.
Okay. Isn't it the president has to sign a bill within 7 days of it passing?
Or
it
is
considered
considered
a veto?
That is correct.
President Miller?
Technically, I have until midnight.
She is correct.
With another point of
I have a question. Can I be recognized?
Senator Zacharias.
So, 2-part question. So, 1, wouldn't that make it, because it's signed before midnight, that senators who turn in their senator hours before midnight would only turn in 1 hour?
If it is signed before midnight, you would still do 2. Because the journal still has to be updated.
A point of information towards the president.
If it's about the senator hours, then no.
Okay.
Okay, that's the
Okay.
point of order. But
Everybody,
President Miller.
just do your 2 hours, and whatever happens, happens.
Before
Senator-
we move on, hold up. Just like I
Gabriel.
said last week, the bill is required to be updated in the code before it goes into effect. So until you get the notification that the journal has been updated, the bill has not gone into effect. That is how the process has always worked. It's what I explained last week. So the bill you all passed is out of the legislative branch and in the executive branch until it's updated. So please remember what I mentioned last week, that it has to be updated in the journal, and you will be notified when that happens.
Senator Khan.
Can I update the journal?
No.
Another point of information?
That responsibility lies with the Chief of Operations, who is currently not in, so that role is being split between myself and Advisor Fonseca as necessary. So to answer your question, no, you may not update the journal. Senator Wright.
A motion to adjourn.
I will not entertain that because senators have left, and I want it noted in the record. With that, are there any other remarks and announcements? Senator Castillo.
So the Fairmont College Dean's Office, as well as the Fairmont College Student Advisory Council, we're hosting the Fairmont College's first inaugural Hall of Fame ceremony on December 6th from 1 to 2 in Wiedemann Hall. And so we'll be inducting 3 different individuals who are alumni of the Fairmont College, and they each pertain to the different disciplines within the college. So we'd love to see some of you guys come out and help recognize these individuals.
We have 4 minutes before we have to drop. Are there any other remarks and announcements beforehand? Senator Khan.
All right, so after all the fun stuff that happened today, we should, take a break, have some fun at the alley. Yes. So just remember, our time starts from 6 p.m. till 8 p.m. If you want to arrive early, which is amazing because early is on time and on time is late, said someone wise. So make sure that you all show up and have fun at the alley, which is on 13th Street off of the K96 highway, and I will send an email tonight regarding it, so be on the lookout for the email.
Senator Zacharias.
Remember to turn in your 2 senator hours tonight, guys.
Thank you. Any other remarks and announcements? Seeing none, I want to thank all of you for being flexible as I was not here. I will be reviewing the tape, but from what I was here, Lucas did a great job. I want to give him a round of applause real quick. With that, when I call your name, please answer with either present or here. Senator Babin.
Present.
Senator Bradley. Senator Brown. Senator Castillo.
Present.
Senator Cowden.
Present.
Senator Cunningham is excused. Senator Day.
Here.
Senator Ezel.
Here.
Senator Flores.
Here.
Glover is excused. Senator James.
Here.
Senator Kata. Senator Kahinde. Senator Kendrick.
Present.
Senator Kennedy. Senator Khan.
Present.
Senator Lepetsky.
Present.
Senator Majors.
Present.
Senator Mattson.
Here.
Senator Kate Miller. Senator Morgan. Senator Mounts.
Present.
Senator Nazir.
Present.
Senator Nguyen.
Here.
Senator Sanchez.
Here.
Senator Tubak.
Here.
Senator Wang.
Here.
Senator Webb.
Present.
Senator Wright.
Present.
Senator Zacharias.
Here.
We will adjourn at 10:09 p.m. So we had 3 leave and 1 come.